Washington, D.C., 1911. Colonel Isaac Newton Lewis walks into the United States Army Ordnance Department with a light machine gun he has spent years designing and perfecting. It weighs 26 pounds. It is gas-operated, air-cooled, fed from a 47-round pan magazine mounted on top of the receiver. It fires 500 rounds per minute. It can be carried and operated by a single soldier. It is the most advanced light automatic weapon any army has produced. The man waiting to receive him is General William Crozier, Chief of Ordnance. The meeting is brief. Crozier rejects the weapon. The reasons given are technical. The reasons understood by everyone in the room are personal. Lewis and Crozier despise each other. Lewis has previously testified before Congress about the obsolete policies and worn-out conditions in the Board of Ordnance, the board that Crozier runs. Crozier has not forgotten. The Lewis gun is rejected not because it fails any test. It is rejected because its inventor made an enemy of the man whose job it was to say yes. Lewis retires from the United States Army in 1913 and sails for Europe. He sets up a manufacturing company in Liège, Belgium, and begins negotiations with the Birmingham Small Arms Company in England. The British Army evaluates his weapon in 1915 and adopts it immediately. By the end of the First World War, over 50,000 Lewis guns have been produced in Britain alone. The weapon that America refused to carry kills more German soldiers than almost any other portable automatic weapon of the war. And then, 25 years later, when Britain pulls 58,000 Lewis guns from storage after Dunkirk and presses them back into service, the gun that a personal feud condemned to exile becomes the weapon that the Royal Air Force credits with shooting down more low-flying enemy aircraft than any other anti-aircraft weapon in the British infantry. A political rejection, a man's fury, a gun that outlived both. Isaac Newton Lewis was born in New Salem, Pennsylvania, in 1858. He graduated from West Point in 1884, commissioned into the artillery. He was by temperament an engineer rather than a soldier. His most significant early work was the development of the first successful artillery range and position finder, a device the United States Army promptly declined to adopt. This pattern of invention, followed by official rejection, would define his career. Lewis studied the initial machine gun designs of Samuel McLean and recognized in them the potential for something genuinely new. A light, portable, air-cooled automatic weapon that a single infantryman could carry and operate without the crew requirements of the Vickers or the Maxim. His refinements produced a gas-operated mechanism that tapped propellant gas from a port near the muzzle to drive a piston rearward, cycling the bolt. The barrel was enclosed in a distinctive aluminium-finned heat sink, wrapped in a tubular shroud, the most recognizable visual feature of the weapon. Muzzle blast drew air through the shroud and over the cooling fins as the gun fired, allowing sustained fire that an air-cooled weapon without the shroud could not sustain. The pan magazine, rotating clockwise as the gun fired, sat flat on top of the receiver. 47 rounds in the standard infantry version, 97 in the aircraft version. The whole assembly weighed 26 pounds unloaded, less than half the weight of the Vickers on its tripod. One man could carry it, set it up, and open fire in seconds. In 1911, no military force on Earth had anything like it. The United States Army, offered this weapon by an officer of their own service, found reasons to say no. The Birmingham Small Arms Company began producing the Lewis gun under license in 1914. The British Army adopted it in 1915 as a section-level automatic weapon, one per section, supplementing the Vickers in the platoon support role. In the trenches of the Western Front, the Lewis transformed infantry tactics. A section could now carry its own automatic fire support without depending on a Vickers team. The weapon was taken into the air almost immediately. The Royal Flying Corps mounted Lewis guns on their aircraft from 1915 onward. Initially, on observers' positions in two-seat aircraft, then on single-seat fighters, using overwing mounts that allowed the gun to fire above the propeller arc without synchronization. The aircraft version shed the barrel cooling shroud entirely. At the speeds and altitudes of aerial combat, Ram air over the barrel was sufficient, and the shroud's weight and drag were unnecessary penalties. The aircraft Lewis was lighter, simpler, and loaded from a 97-round Pan magazine rather than the infantry's 47. Germany, encountering the Lewis gun in aerial combat, gave it a nickname that has survived in the historical record. They called it the Belgian rattlesnake, partly for the sound of its firing, and partly for the distinctive visual profile of the cooling shroud that the aircraft version did not carry. The Germans coined the name from the ground version they faced across no man's land. The aircraft version that killed their pilots earned the reputation but not the nickname. Albert Ball, the Royal Flying Corps leading ace in 1916, mounted a Lewis on the upper wing of his Nieuport and used it to attack German aircraft from below, firing upward into their blind spot. The technique required him to pull a cord to tilt the gun downward for reloading, an arrangement so dangerous and demanding that it would have been impossible for a less skilled pilot. Ball used it to destroy 44 German aircraft before his death in May 1917. His Victoria Cross citation makes no mention of the physical difficulty of what he was doing. The citation was for the killing. The technique was simply what the weapon required, and Ball found it acceptable. By 1938, the Lewis gun had been officially replaced in British infantry service by the Bren. The replacement was an acknowledgement of the Bren's superior accuracy and reliability, rather than any failure on the Lewis's part. The Lewis had served for more than 2 decades without significant complaint. The Royal Navy retained it as a short-range anti-aircraft weapon on vessels too small for heavier armament. Storage facilities across Britain held tens of thousands of Lewis guns in various states of preservation, officially surplus, officially retired. Then came Dunkirk. Between May the 26th and June the 4th, 1940, the British Expeditionary Force evacuated 338,000 men from the beaches of northern France. They left behind nearly 2,500 artillery pieces, 63,000 vehicles, and most of their crew served automatic weapons. The army that returned to Britain had rifles. It had men. It had almost nothing else. The War Office issued an immediate instruction. Every Lewis gun in storage was to be found, inspected, repaired where necessary, and issued. 58,983 Lewis guns came out of storage. They went to the Home Guard, to airfield defense units, to coastal positions. They went to the anti-aircraft batteries defending the cities and airfields that the Luftwaffe was about to begin attacking. And it was in this role, the role nobody had designed the Lewis for, the role that its inventor had never imagined when he built it in Pennsylvania in 1911, that it performed its most remarkable service of the entire war. Now, before we get into what happened next, if you are following this, hit subscribe. It costs nothing, and it helps the channel grow. The Lewis gun's effectiveness as an anti-aircraft weapon came from a characteristic that had been considered a limitation throughout its infantry career. The Pan magazine held only 47 rounds in the sustained fire role against infantry targets. This was a genuine constraint. The Bren's 30-round box could be changed faster, and the Vickers's belt feed never needed changing at all. Against a low-flying aircraft crossing a defended position at 200 miles per hour, 47 rounds fired at 500 rounds per minute was a burst lasting 5.6 seconds. A Spitfire, at maximum speed, crossed a mile in 18 seconds. A Heinkel He-111, making a low-level bombing run, was crossing the target area in roughly the same time, 5.6 seconds of concentrated fire, from a weapon that weighed 26 pounds and could be traversed rapidly by a single operator, was, it turned out, exactly what was needed. The British credited the Lewis gun with shooting down more low-flying enemy aircraft than any other anti-aircraft weapon in their inventory during the war. This figure has been contested by some historians who argue that attribution in the chaos of air defense operations was imprecise at best. What is not contested is that 58,000 Lewis guns came out of storage and went to work, and that the weapon which had been officially retired performed a role that the weapons officially replacing it could not fill as effectively. The Bren was a better infantry weapon than the Lewis, in almost every respect. It was not a better anti-aircraft weapon. The Lewis's Pan magazine, its lightweight, its rapid traverse, and its rate of fire made it the right tool for the specific problem of the low-flying aircraft. Britain had thrown the tool away. Britain needed it back. Britain got it back. The Home Guard Lewis gun story produced one discovery that embarrassed everyone who had designed the weapon's cooling system. When Home Guard units received aircraft Lewis guns stripped of their barrel shrouds for conversion to ground use, they discovered that the weapon functioned perfectly without the shroud. The shroud, the distinctive finned cylinder that was the Lewis gun's most recognizable visual feature, the element that made it appear so different from every other machine gun of its era, was unnecessary. The barrel cooled adequately without it under normal firing conditions. The cooling system that Lewis had designed, that Birmingham Small Arms had manufactured, that 50,000 gunners had maintained and cleaned across 2 world wars, was largely theatrical. Veterans of the First World War, who had carried the full assembly across the mud of Flanders, were reportedly furious. The gun they had lugged at 30 pounds loaded, the gun whose shroud they had cleaned and maintained and cursed in the rain, turned out to be an effective 22-pound weapon that had been carrying extra weight for no combat purpose. It worked without it. It had always worked without it. Nobody had thought to check until the emergency of 1940 forced the question. Beyond Britain, the Lewis gun's recalled service extended to the Pacific. British, Australian, Dutch, and New Zealand forces used it in the early years of the Pacific Campaign against the Japanese, where it appeared on vessels, at airfield perimeters, and in infantry positions across territories that had received it as reserve equipment before the war. Peter White of the King's Own Scottish Borderers recorded that his battalion was still using the Lewis on universal carriers in 1945, 5 years after it had been recalled from retirement, 7 years after it had been officially replaced. The weapon refused to stop being useful. The Lewis was formally withdrawn from British service in 1946, 31 years after its adoption. Over 152,000 had been produced in total. It had served in the air, on the land, and at sea. It had been officially replaced, officially retired, and officially recalled. The weapon that America refused and Britain built outlasted the war that made it famous, and the replacement that was supposed to make it unnecessary. In the next video, the Vickers K, the weapon that replaced the Lewis on RAF aircraft and in the hands of the Special Air Service, and why the men who carried both said the Vickers K did something the Lewis never could.